Hi there, I'm Gloria Makarenko. Well, you're going to meet craft makers and laugh along with us as we explore the city's talents. This is Our Vancouver. Coming up, we have some tips on how to build resilience into your garden and finding diversity at one of Vancouver's fastest growing craft markets. But first, let's laugh together with an emerging playwright as she imitates life's comedy. Travel, food, and entertainment, all happily a part of our lives once again. And live theater is back stronger than ever. And a local playwright is returning to the stage with grace and with plenty of humor, too. With us today is Bronwyn Carradine, debuting a comedy. It's called Unexpecting. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Unexpecting. What's it all about?
Well, Unexpecting, it follows a couple, Annie and Joe, who've been trying to have a child for 5 years. And as the play starts, Annie and Joe are kind of at the end of their patience and their pennies. And it feels like this might be their last chance. Their last chance is taken away from them to have a baby. And as that happens, someone knocks on their door. And it's a comedy. It's a cast of 4 women. And so it's Annie and Joe, the main couple, and then Annie's best friend, Pam, who's a very brash LA showrunner, and then Sawyer, who's the birth mother of the child that they're supposed to adopt.
Oh, it sounds like a great mix. So to what extent, Bronwyn, did this play, did art imitate life for you?
I would say actually my life is now imitating the art that I was creating a bit more. I started writing the show in 2019, and for me it was a way to explore really, like, as a queer person, what creating a family would entail. It's never going to be an easy thing. It's always going to cost a lot of money and a lot of heartache and have a lot of paperwork, whatever way you go down. And so for me it was a way to explore that reality, but in a fun way that's comedic, and life is hilarious.
Life is hilarious. So what kinds of things happen?
In the show, well, there's actually a lot of physical comedy in the show. So the show takes place in Annie and Joe's apartment, which is a loft apartment in Gastown. It takes place in Vancouver. And there's a couple hilarious scenes where Joe and Pam, Annie's best friend, they realize that Sawyer is coming to their house. And they have to scramble to then clean up the house and make sure that it's appropriate for...
We're going to be good parents, honest.
Exactly, yeah. So they're hiding all the wine bottles in the dishwasher, and all the dirty dishes go in the stove. And it's kind of what happens when chaos ensues, and how you're not really thinking straight. You're just doing what you need to do.
Well, you point out, like, this in this particular story, it's about a queer couple kind of navigating that world. But I mean, these are universal themes for anyone considering having a family. So what's your hope in terms of who comes to appreciate this work?
I mean, I hope everyone comes. I think you're right. I think it's very universal, just about creating a family, whether, whoever you are, and whether that's a chosen family or with your partner, a bit of that. And I hope people come and they want to laugh, and I hope people come and they feel like they really connect with these characters. And the way that we've set up the theater is we're in Studio 16, and so we actually set it up so you walk through the apartment to get to the seats. So I hope that people feel like they're really entering the lives of these characters. Right,
and we've got some of the cast members scrolling through as you and I are talking. And this is an all-female cast.
It's an all-female cast, yeah.
Why was that important for you?
Well, for me, it's interesting. I started writing the show again, as I said, in 2019, and was exploring, like, how am I telling this story about this queer couple, and they've been trying to have a child, and at first, I had a father as a figure of it, and then as I was working on it, I felt, well, wait, we could just do this with all women. Yeah. And it is, I think that in itself is a statement. There's 4 strong women on stage, and they're not talking about men. I don't know. For me, I think that's exciting.
Good on you.
Yeah.
Good on you. No, but interesting timing for the premiere. You've got another little project on the go.
I do, yes. As I was saying, I am running the BMO Marathon the day after the show opens.
The full marathon.
The full marathon.
Have you done a marathon before?
I have not. This will be my first official marathon.
So how did this all work out? That this happens like within hours, the two major events in your life.
Yes, it's going to be a big weekend. I think my mom is actually coming in from Ontario, so she's happy that she gets to be here for both big things.
I want to hear about how your days unfold, because you've got to get training and rehearsing in there.
Yeah, and my full-time job, so it's definitely a lot. I have a very understanding partner. But for me, actually running really grounds me, and especially long-distance running. I run with a run club as well in Burnaby, and they're amazing people, and none of them work in theater, which is kind of nice to be able to talk about these life things, and that they also really connect with the stories, and they're all coming to see the show. But taking those 2 to 3 hours every single Saturday and then a couple hours throughout the week, it really lets me focus.
That's a commitment.
It is
Okay.
a commitment,
Okay. Well,
yes.
I hope that you have a great run. I hope the show has a great run.
Thank you.
Where is it showing?
So it's at Studio 16, which is as known as like the Sesiam space. And it's a very small, intimate space. It's just under 100 seats. So it's really going to feel like you're part of the action.
Bronwyn, have a great time.
Thank you
Seriously,
so much.
thank you for coming in.
Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Ryan, and this is our Vancouver.
So many of you take amazing photographs in our beautiful province, and we always like to feature a few of the ones we receive every week. Let's start with this one from Susan Hall. She sent us a lovely little moment between a mother hummingbird and her 2 babies. That's in Kitsilano. So lovely. Thanks so much for that, Susan. And Travis Bonner snapped this beauty of Shoe Swap Lake near Salmon Arm. Such stunning landscape. Travis, thank you. And finally, Ashley Kitching was in a boat on Night Inlet on BC's Central Coast when she spotted this grizzly getting drenched in the rain. What a trip that must have been. Ashley, just gorgeous. Thanks for sharing. And do send us more if you're out around the province with your camera. Choose some of your favorite photographs. Email them to us, bcphotos@cbc.ca. bcphotos@cbc.ca. Well, speaking of bears, a BC First Nation has been trying to protect the rarest of them. The Kitasoo Hi Nation says BC's spirit bear attracts just as many poachers as it does tourists. And now with salmon stocks in decline, there is heightened concern for their safety.
We are in this place, it's in the Fjordland Conservancy. This place is known as Kynoch. This is one of our old village sites. We came here with BC Parks and one of the ministers, George Heyman. We basically signed off on a new agreement where our watchmen will now have provincial BC Parks authority. And so if someone's doing something illegal here, our watchmen can now basically issue them a ticket. In the past, you would see very little enforcement agencies up here. We saw so many illegal activities. But my community said, get a watchman program, get your own people out there. So we started building the watchman program in around 2004. And the challenge is that our guys would ride around and do a lot of the data collection, and they would enforce laws on behalf of our community, on behalf of the nation. But we weren't recognized by the provincial government or the federal government. Prior to that, you know, if our watchmen caught something, you know, they caught someone doing something illegal, we would have to report it, and then we'd have to wait for someone to come up and do an investigation, or, you know, so it took time.
I've been going out in the boat since I was like a young kid. All these older generations have, you know, handed down their knowledge to me. My favorite thing is to pulling up to a boat when they're anchored, introduce the program to them and, you know, what we do. Just to get to know all these people all over the world, you know, that do stop here and do use our territory for anchorage for the night. That's the best part of the job.
You can see the bear track right there. We also worked with him to announce a closure of the black bear hunt. Black bears in this part of the world are extremely special because this is the only part in the world that you get spirit bears. And spirit bear is basically a white black bear. And white bears have always been protected, but black bears have not. After the Great Bear Rainforest Agreement, we set aside a lot of the territory in protected areas. Places like this is a protected area, it's a conservancy. And we had the issue where people were coming in and shooting all the bears. So I'm out here, we're trying to run a tourism business. We're trying to take clients from all around the world, show them the beauty of the territory, and sometimes we'd come across a dead bear. And someone would come here and basically shoot a bear, chop off his head, take the fur, and they would leave the whole carcass there. It just felt like a violation of our culture, because that's not a part of our culture. And it just spoke to a larger issue on how do we have a say in wildlife management. And so that's why we pushed super hard to try and end that industry and make sure it didn't exist here.
Bears that we do have, the numbers are going up. There was this black mom with a white cub in one of our estuaries, and my next time there, that cub was all alone, and it had to like learn how to survive on its own. I was watching all these other bears over the past years as it was growing up. It was like the king of the river after. And whenever you seen that white bear come out, it's really, special.
We're super glad to see that there's no more grizzly bear hunting, there's no more black bear hunting, and that is more in line with our culture.
Coming up, please remain seated as Johanna Wagstaff explains what could keep you belted into your long-haul seat a bit longer.
This is your cabin crew speaking. We're experiencing some moderate turbulence. Please return to your seats and fasten your seatbelts forever. Okay, maybe not forever. But heads up, climate change could make air travel a whole lot bumpier. In fact, according to the study, by the middle of the century, the volume of airspace experiencing light turbulence could increase by about 60% and severe turbulence by almost 150%. Clear air turbulence, the kind that happens without the presence of clouds, is a result of wind shear, which is a change in wind speed or direction over a short distance. That rapid change in airflow is what can lead to bumpy conditions. And the jet stream contains about 3 times more clear air turbulence than the rest of the atmosphere. It's also the jet stream where commercial airlines take advantage of that fast-moving air when traveling from west to east. It's at this height, between 9,000 to 12,000 meters, that some research has already begun to detect an increase in the wind shear. And that's because at these heights, the air above the tropics is warming faster than the air above the Arctic, resulting in an increase in temperature difference that drives the jet stream faster and as a result, drives more wind shear. The more CO2 concentrations in the atmosphere, the more this trend looks to continue and the more air turbulence the models predict. So what does this mean for the future of aviation? Well, there's hope that the skill of clear air turbulence forecasts and in-flight detection will continue to improve. But at the end of the day, curbing CO2 is still the only real clear answer.
Johanna, thanks so much, and welcome back to Our Vancouver. I'm Gloria Makarenko. Now, our next guests have forged connections and created space for many of Vancouver's creative circles. Yeah, Andrea and Robert Tucker, they founded a crafters market. It's called Got Craft. That happened about 15 years ago, and they're here today to tell us more about it. So welcome to you both. Great to have you here.
Thank you for having us.
How did Got Craft even get started, Robert?
It started, Andrea was into crochet, and it started with a Christmas present, which was a sewing machine, so she could move into sewing. And then you started to make things, and we attended a market, and we thought there might be something that might be more interesting to us at our age. And it started at the Western Front with that sewing machine, and it grew from there.
Okay, and how did it grow? How did you bring other people into that circle?
Well, basically, we put out a call at our local coffee shop with those little pull tabs because that was before social media, before Facebook and Instagram.
You use old-fashioned pull
Yeah,
tabs.
exactly.
Okay.
And we tacked it onto the coffee shop that we always go to, and people started contacting us. They want to be part of it.
Right.
And we started with 20 vendors at
Yep.
the time.
At the Western Front on Main Street. And that was our first one in May of 2007.
Okay, so who are some of the people who are part of your group?
So we have an assortment of makers.
Yeah.
We have people that do clothing. We have people at cards, paper products, arts, stationery, ceramics, food vendors, all those sorts of things like that.
Okay, and how would you describe that connection when everybody comes together? Just that creativity flowing.
It's just such a community, and everyone kind of like knows each other, or they meet each other at different shows, and we just all come together, you know, twice a year, and it's almost like family.
It is.
Yeah, there's an energy. And we've been makers also, so we've done the markets, and there's
We've been on both sides.
yeah, an excitement to going and setting up and selling, and an excitement when it ends, but it's fun. It's a fun way to work.
Well, it is, and I want to hear about what you've brought in. Andrea, why don't you tell me about some of these pieces of clothing you brought?
Yes, so Ogie is a new vendor to the spring market. She's a Black-owned, size-inclusive fashion brand, and she uses a lot of sustainable sustainable materials, such as like 100% cottons,
This is
recycled
beautiful.
fabrics,
And stretchy.
and dead stock fabrics as well. And she's really, what I really love about her is that she uses a lot of bold colors and bold patterns.
I'm glad I wore this top today, actually.
I
'cause I'm
know.
kind of so is this the same
This
maker?
is a dress, yes, and it has pockets, which is always
that looks
a
comfy.
bonus.
Yes. Fresh and easy, dress it up, dress it down.
And it can just mix and match with what you currently have in the wardrobe.
Right, and is this hers as well on the mannequin?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And
that
there's
is-
pockets in
that
these
is really nice.
ones.
And
And you
that's
can
a
show
two-piece set.
you can show a little bit of belly if you want. That's sort of in right now. And what about underneath the?
And this one is a top. So she does tops, jackets, pants.
And these are all one-offs. These are all one-offs.
Yes. So because she uses dead stock fabrics, once they're gone, she can't get any more materials.
Beautiful.
They're all limited run.
That is so much fun. And what are these little creatures here, Robert?
Joining us again for the first time this year is Gamer Gadgetry, and they focus a lot on tactile toys and 3D printing. So an example would be their dice roller.
Okay, wait a second. We got to get a close-up of this.
Okay.
So it looks like a little castle.
Yep.
This is a dice roller. Check this out, everybody.
So for everyone who wants to play and has a friend that maybe isn't the best at rolling fairly, it guarantees that each and every time you're going to get a
you
unique
rolled a
roll.
6.
I
You
know.
rolled a 6.
So
just
for
like
your
that.
board games, all that sort of stuff, it gives you a chance to roll for fun. And this is 3D printed.
Love
They're
that.
Kelowna-based. They started in 2019.
And that's a two-piecer.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they print here locally.
Isn't that fun? Because that's something you could just keep out. That's even a conversation piece.
Our
even
son
though
likes
you're
to
not-
roll marbles down it.
Right. Oh, of course.
very
Of
noisy.
course. You can. And what about these?
These are their tactile toys. So these are all 3D printed. They are single piece. And he works with designers and then does the printing locally in Kelowna. And they're very robust. Like you can twist that around
Right,
your arm.
okay,
You
okay.
can
The
play
dragon
it.
is
This is
doing
not just
circles.
decoration to sit on your table. This is for kids. They've got the fun little things like the octopus.
But
the
lots
ring
of
rollers.
adults will like that too.
Yes.
I mean, I
Nothing like having this sitting
playing
on
around
your
with
I'll
it,
pit my
too.
lizard against your
Yep.
octopus. How's that?
And then, yeah, you can do the battles. And they're, like I say, they're really robust. They're really fun. And so they're a new vendor for us. And they're joining us for the first time this year. And it started just before COVID, and then it slowed down with COVID. So they're really back up and ramping it up again. Which
I
is a lot of
love
fun.
this kind of thing. Okay, and now let's talk about bringing kids into it and introducing them to just being creative at a very young age. And your son is
Our
involved in
son
this
is
as
one of
well?
them.
Okay, what has he made, and what are some of the...
We have an area
Come on
called
over
the Kidpreneurs. And these are children that are making and selling. So not just creative, but also learning to make and sell. So our son, Elliot, he is made by Elliot. He does the fabric buttons and the hand-drawn buttons there.
Okay, that would
So
be
that's
here.
his work here. So those are his hand-drawn buttons and his fabric buttons.
Aren't they
And he draws, and then we help him assemble and put them all together. He actually started when he was in kindergarten. So he started at the age of 5. At the age of 5, he didn't say much, but he could type your purchase into the Square
I'm not
terminal.
sure he said anything, but
And
yes.
then hand you the Square terminal to collect your money.
Right, so do
Yep.
kids get together and do this together, or is it just you make it separately and then everybody comes together when you have a
You
show?
make it at home.
Right.
And then they show up with their little setup, and usually we don't even know what they're going to bring. It's always a surprise for us, too.
Okay.
So they'll be up on the stage, about 10 of them.
Yes.
And this is a representation of the different things that we've had come through before. One of our friends was making skipping ropes.
Handmade skipping
Yep.
rope. Isn't it super lightweight,
Yep.
too? Those are beautiful.
And then
And they all range
candles.
between 7 and 14 years
Candles
old.
here, tassels, jewelry, all that kind of. What about the swag bags?
Yes.
Do you want to show off our? These are coveted. Ever since we started doing swag bags, and the
Right.
vendors provide tangible items.
Got
So
craft.
it's not full of business cards. Could be samples, could be one-offs, could be things that have minor errors to them.
Yes.
But all the vendors provide items, and we stuff these bags full. And this is a local designer, Whitney Liu. She
Yeah.
did the design this year. And then Robbie Vigar Screen Printing, he printed them locally also. And we stuffed them full. So the first 50 each day
Yes.
line up starting at about 6 in the morning to get their hands on these. And we do
Right.
a different design each year.
Right.
And we actually
And you don't
started-
know what's inside. You just
don't
like
know.
it's a blind
It's a
bidding. Do
blind
you
bidding.
bid or
no? It's included with your entry fee if you're one
see.
of the first 50 paid people through the door.
Wow.
We actually started back in the day. We used to hand sew them.
I see.
With that sewing machine.
With the sewing
Those
machine.
are
We used to go to
great.
Dress Sew and buy fabric and,
And of
build
course,
our own bags.
these are going to the shopping to the
Oh, yes,
supermarket
yeah.
afterwards. Those are
Definitely.
super. So where and when can we have your wares displayed next?
The spring market takes place May 6th and 7th, so it's a Saturday and Sunday at the Croatian Cultural Center in East Vancouver,
May 6th and 7th.
Yeah.
10 to 5.
Thank you so much for this
Thank you.
preview. It's so nice to meet you. And let's get creative, everyone. Just gorgeous.
Hi, my name is Shiva. Salam, اسم من هست طاهره. And this is our Vancouver, the greatest place in the world.
You think you're special. Oh, you think it's something else. Okay, so you're Brad Pitt.
If you'd like to get out and see some live music, the queen of country pop herself, Shania Twain, plays Rogers Arena May 2nd. And French electronic group M83 share their latest album, Fantasy, at the Commodore Ballroom, May 9th.
Hi, I'm Grant Lawrence from CBC Music, and I'd like to share with you today an introspective singer-songwriter from Winnipeg named Grant Davidson, whose performing name is Slow Leaves. His singing voice is both fragile and self-assured in a 1970s easy style, and Slow Leaves specializes in celebrating the little things in life, like love and family and a sink full of dishes.
You wake up with wishes and a sink full of dishes, a brain you try washing, a dog full of barking, but no one wants to hear you complain. Then late in the evening when you thought she was sleeping, deep in your marrow, a fluttering sparrow beats against the ribs of your cage.
Lovely. From his acclaimed album Shelf Life from 2020, that was Slow Leaves with Sink Full of Dishes, a domestic visual that most of us can instantly relate to. And when he was asked about that song, Slow Leaves said, "Each morning I wake up with a sink full of dishes and a head full of wishes. I'm never sure which mess to clean up first." Here's Slow Leaves with Holiday.
Time to get a piece of the pie. I'm loosening my clip-on tie. There's blue skies overhead. Take me on a holiday. Find some place to hide away.
Fans of Hayden or Bahamas should take note because that is your new favorite singer, Slow Leaves from Winnipeg, with his song Holiday, going back to this prolific artist's 2021 album of the same name. Now, Slow Leaves is getting ready to drop a new record in June. It's called Meantime, which is, quote, about waiting for something momentous to occur in life and how all the mundane stuff that happens during the wait actually constitutes what is meaningful.
I wanna be in an American band, see the bright light shining from the back of the van, and we'll keep on rolling just as long as we can. Alright, alright.
Nice folk rock vibe on that one. That is Slow Leaves with the brand new song American Band from his upcoming album Meantime. All about the little things that really matter. And what really matters to me is that you add American Band by Slow Leaves to your new music playlist for this week. I'm Grant Lawrence from CBC Music. I'll check in with you again soon.
Coming up, some simple and free tips on how to make your summer garden climate resilient. Hello and welcome back to Our Vancouver. I'm Gloria Makarenko. Now, the Okanagan's multi-billion-dollar wine industry, it could take a hit this year. Vineyards are facing some serious damage from a harsh winter cold snap. And as Brady Strachan shows us, that's a problem for winemakers and for the thriving tourism industry that relies on them.
Okay, so we can cut this bud. That's how we check the damage.
South Okanagan grape grower Bronwyn Carradine doesn't like what he's seeing. These tiny buds on his vines are what will turn into this year's grape crop.
And if you can go a little bit more deeper, yeah, they're brown and black. So that means that this is done.
Extreme cold last December froze the delicate buds solid. The damage is unlike anything he's seen in his 30 years of growing grapes.
Every single variety is damaged. So we'll lose at least 50 to 70%.
These vines here in Oliver were damaged in the cold snap. This field here is just one of 600 acres of Dhaliwal's vineyards that sustained damage over the winter. Crop loss is projected right across the Okanagan Valley, where the vast majority of BC's wine grapes are grown. The BC wine industry is estimating a 50% drop in grape production this year. The winter damage is the latest in a string of extreme weather events to hit the region, everything from excessive heat and wildfire smoke to flooding and extreme cold.
So this is all combining to having an effect on our grape production. And over the last 5 or 6 years, we've slowly seen a decrease up to 30% in what we should be getting off of what we know is planted. So we attribute it to climate change.
We're beholden to Mother Nature.
A reduced harvest will impact winemakers like David Patterson. For a region so dependent on tourism, he's worried about a ripple effect if there's less wine to go around.
Tasting rooms not being able to open because they just don't have the wine. Well, if the tasting room's not open, that's not going to drive tourism. It's going to be a negative effect on tourism.
It's just a dry wood, right?
Back in Oliver, Bronwyn Carradine is cutting his losses, literally chopping down this block of Roussanne vines that were significantly damaged.
This variety is toast, it's done. And then we just cut it off and we can put in the new variety.
He says responding to the changing climate is the only way forward. Brady Strachan, CBC News, Oliver, British Columbia.
You know, climate change is affecting everything in our lives, right down to how we grow vegetables at home. Extreme rain events, colder winters, they're all taking a toll on the soil that we use in our gardens. So some simple tips now to keep those greens growing.
Hi, I'm Christina Chung, and I'm a horticulturist here in rainy Vancouver. Today we're in my garden, and I want to show you something that's super beneficial that many gardeners don't think about. Even before we enter the prime growing season, we as gardeners have probably thought about how to give our plants the best chance at success. We tend to our seedlings or buy the healthiest plants, and also make sure we have supplies and tools on hand for the growing season. But did you know that there's one item that oftentimes doesn't make it onto the checklist? I'm talking about covering the soil, and it could be with mulch or with living plants, just something that acts as a blanket on top of the soil surface.
A light physical barrier on top of the garden beds and containers not only helps lessen the evaporation from the soil in the hotter months, it also prevents erosion from wind, water, like during heavy rains or when we overhead water, and also compaction from our feet.
Another huge benefit is weed suppression. So this beautiful dense mat of creeping thyme prevented weed seeds from landing and germinating. I don't have to do any weeding here, which is great. This adjacent area had exposed soil. Weed seeds landed, germinated, and now I have a lot of weeding to do. Have you ever tried to water a thirsty plant in your garden bed or a container and noticed the water sliding right off of the surface? If so, then you may need to look into mulching.
There's likely a dry crust on top of the soil, which is preventing the water from actually infiltrating or entering the soil and reaching your plant's roots. And this is not good. One simple way to prevent this is by mulching or growing ground covers so that the crust doesn't form.
So what are some options for covering the soil? Well, one of the more common, effective, and free types of mulch are leaves.
If you have access to leaves, collect them and use them. The best leaves to look for are the ones that are small, like the size of your palm, and also pliable. The smaller size is much easier to apply and also breaks down through the season faster to contribute amazing organic matter into your soil.
Straw is a wonderful material, and it's used a lot in food gardens. It's a lightweight material that's perfect for working around the base of crops. Now, with all of these loose materials, you have to keep in mind that you want to create the blanket on top of the soil. You don't want to mix it into the actual soil.
One of my favorite ways to cover the soil is by using living plants. Low-growing perennials like creeping thymes, sedum, strawberry, ajuga, and other ground-hugging plants make excellent covers. You can even design a patchwork, all knitted together, over time to suppress the weeds and also add a lot of interest and beauty to your garden.
If you're a food gardener, and especially if you garden in containers, here's a really fun, easy, and simple way to grow your edible ground cover. Just sow a whole bunch of baby greens, like this kale and mustard here. For me, these are a bit too big. I'm gonna harvest them and then sprinkle a new layer of seeds. They're gonna germinate really quickly, and within 2 weeks, I'm gonna get a new layer of edible ground cover. So when would you apply mulch? Anytime, really. But if you're planting plants into your garden right now, you can mulch with something quick, like leaves, so you can start getting the benefits of covering your soil.
Just make sure to leave an inch or so around the base of the plant.
So what if you just sowed a whole bunch of springtime veggies like greens and carrots? Instead of smothering the emerging seedlings, wait until they actually peek out of the soil and then apply the mulch around the base, like what I did with these carrots. In our climate, there's always a window of opportunity to introduce new plants into the garden, including perennial ground covers like this beautiful creeping thyme. Remember, with that protective blanket on top of the soil, you'll see fewer weeds, happier, more hydrated plants, less erosion from the wind and the rain, and also beauty if you opt for perennial plants. Thanks for joining me in my garden today, and happy gardening.
Coming up, we meet Canada's top b-boy and next Olympic hopeful. Stay with us for that. Hi, welcome back to Our Vancouver. I'm Gloria Makarenko. Well, he's a world champion and Canada's next Olympic hopeful. Phil Wizard has been competing at the highest levels of breakdancing around the world, and he could be headed for the 2024 Olympics in Paris. I caught up with the breaking b-boy on the CBC's afternoon show On the Coast. That was the WDSF, the World Dance Sports Federation World Championship Breaking Competition from 2022. And it was in this competition that Vancouver breakdancer Phil Wizard took home first place. Now, Phil's real name is Philip Kim, and not only is he a world champion breakdancer, he is also Canada's top prospect for the Olympic Games. That's right. Breakdancing is going to be making its debut at the 2024 Olympic Games in Paris. So how did you even get into this particular style of dance?
Yeah, I actually started in Vancouver. There is a local crew called the Now or Never crew, and they were busking in front of the art gallery. It's a very popular busking spot. And I initially was just walking past and I saw that, and people were spinning on their heads. They were doing these crazy movements, and it really just caught my attention, and I had never seen it live before. I feel like I had seen it on videos, but never in person. And when I saw that, I was like, whoa, it just blew me away. And at the time, I was like right before going into high school. It was the summer, or just right before the summer going into high school. and I just like was a kid looking for something to do, and honestly, I saw that and I was like, oh, I could totally get girls with this. Like, this is something cool to do. And luckily, one of them actually came to my school. They taught hip hop choreo at my elementary school, and I just asked them for a card if they taught breaking. Gave me a card, and then it was kind of history from there.
Wow, you're just going into high school. So what? You're 12, 13 years old?
Yeah, around 12, I would say.
Okay, and where did you go from there?
From there, I just kind of took it casually. Like, I started taking classes for maybe around 3 years with what is now known as Boogaloo Academy. And then from there, there's Robson Square, which for a long time was a common practice spot, a hub for the street dance community. I would go there and meet people, just practice, form friendships, connections, and it just kind of gave me community. It gave me something to put my time and energy into, and it challenged me a lot. So I just kept going with it. The breakers are the ones inside the skating rink because that floor, it's a little tough for us because it's concrete, but it's smooth, and in the summer and stuff, it's usually open all the time, so it's kind of an open practice spot for everyone.
No, it's so entertaining. It's a great place. Bring your dinner, grab a snack, and just sit there and enjoy the entertainment. So what about the name? Where did Phil Wizard come from?
Yeah, my name actually derives from my very first crew, which was called the Wizards Crew, and my name just kind of happened naturally. People always introduced me as Phil from the Wizards Crew. Whenever they introduced me at an event, and then later on, it just kind of naturally got shortened to Phil Wizard.
I see. So you're working with a crew. Where do you draw? What do you draw upon? I guess for inspiration, new moves, kind of. Oh, I haven't seen that before.
Yeah, totally. Breaking is a very artistic sport. You know, we draw inspiration from a lot of things. Oftentimes, it's like, for me personally, it's the people around me, the people I grew up around, kind of inspired me and inspired the way I dance. But you kind of derive inspiration from everything you do. Breaking is a dance first and foremost, so we're expressing ourselves. So everything we do kind of inspires us. Sometimes it's like the emotions you're feeling, you kind of put that into your dance. As cheesy as that sounds, it is true. Sometimes it's other dancers. Sometimes it's just like exchanging with people and bouncing ideas off of stuff. Sometimes it's honestly like watching anime or like seeing something on the street, and then that'll spark an idea. So you can really derive inspiration from anything.
Wow. So, I mean, from local b-boy to world champion breaker and now Olympic prospect, I mean, what goes through your mind when you think on this journey that you've had with breaking?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Like, honestly, it's not somewhere, I think, like, breaking going into the Olympics is something new for us. So I can't say I was like a kid that dreamt of going to the Olympics. So even now, it still feels kind of surreal. The path, the opportunities that are coming. I feel very grateful, but like, I'm just kind of taking it day by day, honestly. Like, I'm very lucky to say that I enjoy my life every day, and I just love what I do. So the blessing is for me to be able to show up every day and just kind of improve on what I do, and opportunities come from that, and that's amazing.
Well, sure. And you've been traveling a lot for Olympic qualifiers these days. So how does that feel to be a qualifier compared to dancing in a competition?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot more stressful and a lot more strenuous. The days are quite long, and the amount of rounds, like the amount of actual competition rounds we have to do for these qualifier events, are significantly more than any other competition. So it is very, very demanding. But I think I've always kind of had a holistic approach to my training, where I've just always wanted to be the best that I could be. So I don't think I'm particularly training any harder. I've just always approached everyday training as hard as I can. But again, it's a blessing. Like, a lot of times we're at these events, and yes, it's stressful, yes, it's competitive, but I'm also there with a lot of my friends, you know? So at the same time, we're hanging out, we're seeing the same people every time at these events, and so there's still a good vibe about it.
Yeah, well, great community vibe. I would agree, even just as an onlooker, just like, that looks like fun, but it's so athletic, and I can understand where it would be really taxing on your body as well. So, I mean, what kind of training do you do?
Yeah, so it's kind of all-encompassing. For me, obviously, breaking, like the actual training, is the most important thing. And when I'm in the studio, I'm usually there for, let's say, 2 to 4 hours. And that encompasses me creating new movements, me trying to develop new skills, drilling the movements that I do have, listening to different music, being able to adapt to the music. So it's kind of encompassing everything that I would, any situation that I would see myself in a competition, as well as creating new movements.
How is this going to be judged? When I think about, if we were to compare it to, I don't know, ice dancing or something like that, is it subjective? Are there certain moves you have to hit?
Yeah, so with breaking, there's no criteria of like, you have to do this many moves or this move specifically. The judging system works in a comparative format. So with myself and someone else who I'm competing against, they're comparing us based on a few different categories. From my understanding, it's mind, body, soul, and those are then broken down to further into like technique, originality, musicality, execution, stuff like that. But it's a comparative system, so they're comparing you against the opponent you're going against.
You have given us so much to watch for, Phil. Seriously, what a great journey so far. All the best with the qualifiers, and great to meet you.
Thank you very much. Very nice to meet you as well. Thanks for having me.
Work all night on a drink of rum. Daylight come and we want to go home.
Renowned singer, actor, and civil rights activist Harry Belafonte died this week. Belafonte rose to fame back in the 1950s. He recorded more than 30 albums and was so popular, he was invited to play at venues previously off limits to Black singers. Now, in February of 1995, he performed here in Vancouver and spoke to the CBC about what he had in store for his BC fans.
She does not lazy dance her hands on me. She does not talk no pretty talk. She pleasures silently.
It's really rooted in third world harmonies, themes, rhythms. That's where I got my start. But if I were to pick someone who would perhaps represent the closest to our sound, I would have to say that would be Paul Simon's Graceland. I came from an environment that was terribly, terribly oppressed. I grew up in Harlem. I was born in New York. My parents were immigrants who had come to America looking for the American dream, and instead they found the American nightmare. They had a very difficult time, and I always vowed that I would follow my mother's footsteps and always do battle with the enemy, always do battle against oppression and racism. There's always going to be evil. There's always those who are driven by greed and the quest for power that will do mischief to humankind. And we just have to be on top of it. This April, I go to Kansas City. I play the male lead in, excuse me, the male lead in Bob Altman's picture called Kansas City. I just finished starring in a movie with John Travolta. And it's in the can. It'll come out in the fall. They're editing now.
What's it called?
It's called A White Man's Burden.
Come and we won't go home. He said, come, Mr. Tallyman, and tally me banana. Daylight come and we won't go home. Hey-oh, hey-oh. Daylight come and we won't go home. Hey! Daylight come and we won't go home.
Now, at the end of this program, we like to tip our hats to our talented photojournalists on staff here at CBC Vancouver. They bring us images in their artful ways to give depth and character to the stories that we cover. So here's a sampling from what they saw this past week. And that's all for Our Vancouver for this week. I hope you can join me weekday afternoons on CBC Radio 1 for On the Coast. For now, bye-bye.